Namaskar. In continuation with a video which I had made a few months back on uh, sports career, which is part of my career astrology series, here is the second installment on this. And this is much more comprehensive in the sense of the kind of combinations I state, and I am not specifically talking about a particular sport here. Okay, you can use these combinations for any sport. I have checked it in horoscopes of uh, various kinds of sports persons belonging to different sport disciplines, including cricket, boxing, um, wrestling, archery, javelin throw is what I had earlier shared with you, and some more. Football also for that matter, football and rugby. Um, Now, when we think about career in general, sporting career is very interesting because um, the one is that success and failure is very clear and stark in that sense. So when we read the charts of successful sports persons, and secondly, there is a particular period of time or lifetime when they have the success, because after a while they all have to retire. So it's very easy, interesting, and you can also check the dashas which are helping them, etc., when they are performing very well. And a lot of knowledge about them, I mean, especially the successful sports persons, is easily available. And that's why this sporting career is very easy, interesting manner in which to see, okay, how what kind of planets are influencing a particular career. So I am building upon what I had shown in that video, which is actually titled as "Why Neeraj Chopra is a javelin thrower," and in that I had explained about the importance of Mars and the sign of Virgo. Today I'll be actually building upon that, but one interesting thing that I saw, after that I happened to see the charts of several sports people across different sporting disciplines. Um, the whatever combinations I stated over there, it's not. I've seen that work across different sporting disciplines. So that is a key difference from that video to this video. I just wanted to state that at the outset. Otherwise, many of the principles that I used over there are correct, and I have continued to use that same in further analysis. So without further ado, let's look at what are the particular combinations that show that a person will become a sports person. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so what are the combinations for sports? Okay, Mercury is the planet which is about playing, like a child playing in the playground. Okay, because Mercury indicates children. The Naisargika age of Mercury is 4 to 12 years, and that is the age when we are most active in playing. Okay, I mean, many people will play after that also just for the joy and sheer joy of it, but that is when we start playing and we really enjoy playing. We are with other children, so it is the sheer joy of playing. That is what Mercury indicates. But as soon as we talk about career, we are talking about something very serious, and sporting career involves competition. It's about someone winning and someone losing. We know very clearly, right? There's hardly a sport without someone winning or losing, so it's a competition. When we talk of competition, it is like a battle, it's like a war, and the karaka for that is Mars, and the house which relates to that is the sixth house in the zodiac. Okay, and the natural sixth house happens to be Kanya Rashi or Virgo Rashi. Okay, the lords of that is Mercury, and in our tradition we also consider Rahu as a lord, because it happens to be the Mula Trikona of Rahu. See, Mula Trikona indicates office, so Rahu is a very important in that sense lord of Virgo. You cannot ignore him because Mula Trikona indicates the work aspect, and we are talking about Virgo here. When we are talking about Virgo, Kumari, and sixth house, and Mars as well on top of that, and competition and battles, etc. Automatically, the Devata who comes to mind is Lord Kartikeya. I had indicated that in the in the previous lecture also. The interesting thing is that the word Parashara uses for Mars is Shulina, that is one who holds a Shula. We know the only Devata who holds Shula, not Trishula, Shula meaning a single spear, right? So that is Lord Kartikeya. And so many things, the number 6 associated in his with him, we're talking about his mothers being the 6 Kritikas. His birthday happens to be in Shashti Tithi. Because he had 6 mothers, he has 6 faces. He is known as Shanmugha. So we are talking about, and Kartikeya is concerned about battle. He is the Deva Senapati, and he is the one who gives motivation, drive, okay, in any endeavor, okay, not necessarily about playing sports, but in any endeavor, the one who gives motivation and drive to fight it out is Lord Kartikeya. So with his blessings, we'll proceed forward. Okay. So what is the sum and substance of all of this is that in my research, what I have seen is there is an association of Mars very prominent in the horoscope with either Mercury or Rahu or the sign of Virgo. And there is some 6th house association. It's not necessarily that Mars has to be associated with 6th house, but there is some importance of 6th house coming in the horoscope in some way or the other, which we will, when we study a horoscope, we can see that. Okay, this is an important aspect about the chart. Okay, and other aspects about career. Career we generally reckon from different points of view. We look at the 10th house from the moon, especially to look at who is putting food on the plate, who is giving you sustenance, right? What is the activity the society is supporting you with, where it is ready to support you with the money, etc. for that. Okay, that is what society is demanding out of you. That is seen from 10th from the moon. Okay, so for many people this would indicate their career. However, some people have phenomenal Raj Yogas, etc. and all those things. Yet there is some association with 10th from the moon that we see. The other things, you can recall what I have shown in my previous video, where I also examined the 10th from the Navamsha Lagna and 10th from Karakamsha. Karakamsha is the sign of the Atma Karaka in Navamsha. Okay, and specifically shows the 10th from there shows the activity which brings you great deal of satisfaction. Okay, so these things are anyway going to be seen for profession. Now there is some link you find of this with the previous line which I mentioned over here of Mars with Mercury. One of these would be related to these points. Okay, and there is one interesting thing that I saw over there in all the charts which I studied, and that is that the 3rd from Karakamsha is having a malefic influence, and this is clearly stated in Brihat Parashara Vara Shastra, and you can see it in the Karakamsha Adhyaya, the 32nd shloka. Here's the reference for you. It says that if there are malefics in 3rd house from Karakamsha, the person is valorous. You go back and see all the charts which I showed in the javelin throwers Neeraj Chopra video, and you will find almost, I think, in every chart there is some link of Mars Mars is there, but definitely 3rd house from Karakamsha has some malefic influence. In many of those cases Mars was directly involved. You can check that. Okay, I'll give a link of that particular video so you can also have a look at it. Okay, now this, when we talk of valor, contact sports come into play very clearly, right? Because contact sports, when you are putting your body on the line, right? By contact sports I mean things like boxing, wrestling, rugby, you can imagine, people clashing against each other, putting their body on the line. Literally, they can get injured. Okay, so there is some sort of valor involved. Javelin throw is not a contact sport really, but if you see the nature of the sport, it's very warrior like, right? I mean, throwing a spear, right? So I guess throwing a spear, or maybe what is that called, is it shot put, and then there is one thing which they whirl and then they threw, I forgot that name, hammer or something like that. So it's an Olympic sport. So those kind of sports which are having, and I guess you can probably also see that I have not seen in those charts, just to clarify, but the charts of those who do this shooting, in which India wins a lot of medals, and even in the Olympics we won a lot of medal. That is something I mean, as I'm telling you, is worth checking it out. I will check those horoscopes as well, but I suspect that will also have third from Karakamsha having a malefic influence. And specifically, honestly, in all these charts, I am personally looking at Mars and Ra. Okay. Now, let's look at a case, and I have a phenomenal case for you over here. Okay, really great case. This is a famous person, Cinderella Man. I mean, many of you may have heard about this movie. It I believe it won, or at least was nominated for several Academy Awards, that is Oscars. Russell Crowe starred in this movie as the Cinderella Man, James J Braddock. That was the name of this. This is a real life story of a person, and it's a very, very inspiring story. That is why it was named as Cinderella Man. I mean, he was called as Cinderella Man for the reason because he was so inspiring. His life was inspiring. So he was a boxer, born in 1905, James J Braddock, and he had a very good career start. I mean, and his horoscope shows that he's a phenomenal boxer. And very soon, within a few years of becoming professional, I think within 2-3 years, he went to the right at the top, and he was fighting the world champion. He was a challenger, and if he won, he would have become the world champion. This was in 1929. He fought Tommy Loughran. Okay, he was the world champion at that time. But after a very hard fought battle, he lost. Okay, I mean, it was not like he was knocked out or anything. Till that time, he was never knocked out in his career, and even in this match, he was not knocked out. But it was based on points and all that. He lost that match. It was a very disappointing loss for him, and after this, his career went down. Now, those who know a bit of history, we are talking of 1929, and many of you who know of America would know this was the time of what is known as the Great Depression. It was like a period of severe economic downturn. A lot of people, it was something like what we recently faced in 2008, but I from what I hear, it was much worse than that, this 1929 thing. A lot of people lost their jobs, lost their savings, because the stock market went down, and James J Braddock also lost a lot of his money. In fact, so much so that he became impoverished, and he had just got married around that time, and he had his first few children had already been born by that time, and he was facing this poverty situation. On top of that, in somewhere down the line, he picked up an injury on his right hand. I mentioned arm, but it's actually his right hand. So what happened is that his right hand, and eventually there was a match in which he broke his right hand. Okay, there's an interesting story about that also. I will not really get into that. So it said that, okay, I'll tell that also. It's a very interesting story. Why not? So his right hand was in a bad shape, and his doctor said he can't really fight. I mean, if he and to set it right, he would have to break the hand so that the bones get reset. Otherwise, you can't do a proper setting job of and obviously he has to take a break and all that. And just breaking the bones by that doctor, that would have cost a lot of money, and he obviously didn't have money. So what did he do? Very intelligent thing. He actually, in his next match, he deliberately broke his right hand, smashed it. So then his right hand broke, and he had to take a break. There was no way, anyway, he could not have fought. And this was the time he had started having a lot of losses. So from a very high level, he had already come down much low, and then he had to take a break, okay, and allow his hand to heal and whatnot. And so what did he do? He firstly had to take, in those days the state was giving, it's very beautifully shown in this movie, and those who have not seen this movie, I would suggest please do see this. It's a very inspiring movie. So I was very happy to actually find that he has his date of birth and time and all is properly known, and I was able to see his horoscope. I was just happy studying the horoscope of this person. And then obviously very glad that it was also matching all these combinations which I just talked to you about. So he had to take state support, in the sense those days all those people who become impoverished, the government was giving some basic amount of support, in the sense monetary support, and that was a demeaning and humiliating thing for him. He took it on his self-respect, and later on when his good time started, he repaid back every penny. That's the man of self-respect you're having over there. But anyway, the other thing that he did is he took the job, and the job that was available in those days was he had to become a laborer. He was a laborer in a port, okay, so taking those loads and then carrying and all that. Now he had injured his right hand. He could not pick anything from his right hand. He had to allow it to heal. So what did he do? He had to pick things with his left hand. And surprisingly, what happened is, and I am sort of spoiling the movie for you over here, his left hand became stronger without his realizing it, okay, and that became his trump card. Then within some maybe 8 or 9 months later, after he had started this job, there was a guy, an up and coming boxer. His name was Griffin, okay. Now Mr. Griffin wanted to showcase himself, and he wanted to eventually challenge the champion at that time, who was a guy called Max Baer. We'll come to him later. So Griffin wanted to have a match with some renowned boxer, but also he wanted something which is easier, okay, or at least seems easier. So they sort of zoned in on Braddock, because he was a down and out boxer, and at the same time he had a good name. So if he is defeated, he definitely, Griffin can go up and challenge other higher boxers, and that way. So, and Griffin was supposed to be pretty good boxer, young guy, and he had already knocked out many opponents, etc. So Braddock fought this match at 2 days notice. Believe me, 2 days notice. He had hardly been practicing or anything. He had been working as a laborer all this time. Yet, he had no choice. He was getting some money for his for his family, which was very important. So he fought it, and to the surprise of everyone, in the third round, he knocked out this young and upcoming boxer, who was much stronger than him, obviously, right, and much more ready and practiced, prepared for this match. Okay, the third round he knocked, and if I remember right, it was with his left hook. Okay, and then there was no looking back. Within a few months, he challenged Braddock challenged some much better boxers. I believe one guy called Art Lasky or someone, and he blew away everyone. And we are talking of 1934 June onwards, his good period started, and within a year he was challenging the reigning champion of that time, Max Baer. Now Max Baer was a phenomenal boxer. Okay, he was very strong, huge, bear, literally like a bear. Okay, and more than that, he was dangerous. His beatings to his opponents had caused 2 deaths, or at least one certain death, if I remember correctly, or maybe 2 for sure. 2 of his opponents eventually succumbed to their injuries and died. So we're talking of a dangerous opponent. Not that Baer himself was a bad man. In this movie he's shown as a bad guy or anything. He was not. He was actually very, very nice and gentle natured person. And in fact, these deaths caused him a great deal of sorrow, and he took to drinking and all that because of that. I mean, that's a separate story. But Baer was a very powerful boxer, and then this match happened, and it was a phenomenal match. I've seen some YouTube analysis of these, and there's one guy, some martial arts expert who has done a phenomenal video of how he shows, and in that you understand that it was not. So long story short, Cinderella Man wins this match, and this was the match which earned him the nickname Cinderella Man. Why? Because so many people by this time, as Braddock went up and up, in his, so he was like someone like most of the other people who was down and out, lost his savings into poverty, and then he was coming up the ladder. Okay, and his story was inspiring for all those other people who were suffering. So they saw, hey, here is a person like us, and he's coming up, and people clued in. On those days, people listen on radios, right? There was no TV, and they were listening to him, and it is all shown in this movie beautifully, which is also true, quite true. And in a very sensational bout, he defeats Max Baer after 15 rounds. Okay, it was judged on points, and he was a clear victor, unanimous victor. That's an amazing story of his. And this video which I talked about by this martial arts expert, he shows that it was not just about sheer courage of James J. Braddock, but it was also about how he knew the strengths and weakness of his opponent. And that is what you see from the charts. When we talk of Mars and all this, you're talking of someone whose mind works very well in terms of fighting and competition. Okay, he has analyzed it. It's not just bravado and guts and glory. It's about also applying your mind and knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, and the way he worked it out, and that is shown brilliantly in this. I feel so motivated by this that I will share the description of that video as well by this martial arts expert, and I would advise you people, it's a few minutes, I think 10-15 minutes long. Please have a look at it also. You will really appreciate James J. Braddock then. Okay, long story. Let's now analyze his chart. Okay, I've told you all about him almost now. Okay, anyway, one last thing. He was the champion for a couple of years, that is a Cinderella Man, and then 2 years down the line he lost out to another up and coming boxer in a very long match, and I think that was the only time he got knocked out, that is James J. Braddock. And then after that he retired, but he had made a career, he had made money, he earned a lot of money by this comeback, and that took care of his life. Okay, so it's a really Cinderella Man and a fairy tale ending, you may say. Okay, so here we have the chart. Okay, I have presented all the three types of charts. I have the Rashi and the Navamsha, and also you have the planetary positions, degrees, as well as the Panchanga over here. Okay. Note interestingly, I don't mention over here, but Mercury is the lord of the weekday. So it does show where the Agni is directed to. What is the broad karma or purpose of life towards which the Agni is directed to. Okay. Now, when you look at this chart, first allow me to go in the direction which I am going to, and then I'll come back to those combinations which I talked about. Let's look at what is the standout yoga in this chart. Okay, I will look at moon, 10,000, all that, no problem, don't worry. But when you have a standout yoga, it's good to focus on that, because that will definitely have an impact in the life sometime or the other. A bit of study, and you can clearly see Venus and Jupiter is the Raja Yoga in this chart. None of the other planets you can see is Raja Yoga. You can argue Saturn and Ketu is Raja Yoga, 4th Lord and 5th Lord. Raja Yoga means a combination of a Kendra Lord 1, 4, 7, 10 with a Kona Lord 5 or 9. That is what a Raja Yoga is. Now Ketu happens to be the 5th Lord, being co-lord of Pisces, and Saturn happens to be the 4th Lord. So Saturn Ketu do form a yoga, but it's Saturn Ketu yoga. Not that it can't work, but Ketu would not necessarily give money, right? We are talking of a person who earned money, decent amount of money from his profession and had a decent life. Okay, he retired after it. I mean, and he would have put his savings in something and he would have earned from that, and obviously he would have also done some work after that. But he earned his wealth through boxing. So we got to see that that won't justify with Ketu. I mean, nodes can't give money. Okay. My mentor and guru Shri Vistiji always says nodes don't have pockets. Okay, so that is the term to remember. Other than that, you see this Venus and Jupiter yoga. Okay, Venus is the 7th lord and Jupiter is the 5th lord. So this is clearly a Raja yoga. Okay, challenge is it is in the 6th house. Now, one of the things is 6th house or 8th house, these are Dushthanas. Raja yogas over here don't easily come. 8th house, you may not like the Raja yoga yourself. You may want to leave it after a while. Okay. 6th house is, which means there's a lot of struggle. And hey, this guy was a boxer, so he will have to fight, right? 6th house means you have to fight, and his career involved fighting. What else? So hey, this Raja yoga is working over here. Okay. Now, how? By the way, note 6th house. I talked about 6th house in the combination. 6th house becomes important in some way. Okay. Though it's not as clear in all the other charts, mind you. Okay, you have to understand, you have to think a little bit, then you will find some 6th house connection. But here is stark, it is straight away, you can't but notice it over here. And moreover, the 6th lord happens to be Mars. The dispositor of this Raj Yoga happens to be Mars. Direct Mars connection. Mars is very important. Not only that, Mars is having a Parivartana Yoga with Venus. Hey, this is important. This Parivartana in another way also becomes important. We will talk about it. And just to be very clear about it, whether it will feed him or whatever, no doubts about it. The 10th lord from moon is Mars. No doubt. It is going to give him work. Okay. 26, 28, these are the ages. 26 for Venus, 28 for Mars. This is the age when he will be like completely set into that. And yes, before that, 25 itself, he was into this. Okay. Now, what was I going to say next? No, not that. There's something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, I said Mars, I've said 6th house, but I've talked it earlier, talked about this earlier. Mars needs to have some connection with Virgo, Mercury, Rahu, etc., etc. What connection do we have over here? On the face of it, nothing clearly in the Rashi chart, but yes, there is. There is a kind of yoga between Mars and Mercury in the Rashi chart also. I mentioned Navamsha, but there is a yoga in Rashi chart also. How Mars is aspecting Mercury and Mercury is aspecting Mars' sign. This is a yoga. Okay. This is definitely a kind of yoga. Not as strong a yoga as say Parivartana or conjunction, etc., but definitely a yoga. But just to set doubts apart, Mars and Mercury have a yoga in Navamsha. That is pretty good enough. Navamsha, we have to consider yogas in Navamsha also. Okay. So Mars and Mercury have a yoga in Navamsha. And what is the Lagna in Navamsha is Virgo. So that is also there. And this happens to be in the 6th house in Navamsha also. So definitely Navamsha also indicates some struggle, fighting, etc. and all that. Or at least what you call hard labor required for this. So now, what I was really fascinated, I mean this is basic things which we'll do in any horoscope. But what I was really fascinated is the life story playing out and reading it through the horoscope. We know his problem with the right hand, and we know then his strengthening of this left hand, etc., etc. How do we see that in the horoscope? So Mercury definitely in the Kendra is giving him, and then with all these associations, Mars with Venus, Jupiter, and this Mars and Mercury yoga is giving him a career with sports. He started off in a sports career, right? Now in Jyotish, when we see body parts, okay, Mercury is the right hand and Venus is the left hand. Okay. Another way of just explaining to you is, you see, the right hand actually connects to the left part of the brain, what is known as the analytical part of the brain, and the left hand, which is the Venus hand, connects to the right half of the brain, which is the creative, intuitive part of the brain. Okay. And even in the brain, the two lobes, the right and left lobes, are controlled by the two gurus, Jupiter and Venus. Okay. So Venus is controlling the right part, and hence Venus is also ruling the left hand, while Jupiter is controlling the left part of the brain, and Mercury is controlling the right hand. And Jupiter Mercury have this, one of the best yogas in the chart is the Jupiter Mercury yoga, which is like you can say Sarva Karya Siddhi. Karya is what? Karya is something you do with hand, action, right? So it is you may say the left brain and the right hand very strongly connected. I mean, they are connected, but it's like working very well. So here we have Mercury. Now, one problem with Mercury is it is in the 7th house, and hence it is not combust, but it is in Marana Karaka Sthana. 7th house is a Marana Karaka Sthana for. So something gets, dies. Okay. But then you will argue Venus in the 6th house also in Marana Karaka Sthana. Okay. But Venus is having a parivartana with Mars. That changes the things. Okay. And you see, the bhanga of this can also be done by Mars, because Mars is the lord of this sign. While the bhanga of that is Maranakaraka bhanga of Mercury can be done by Venus, because Venus is the lord of sign, but Venus itself is in MKS, right? And this is what is indicating the period of low when his right hand was not working, his left hand was not strong enough, right? But once his right hand went weak, then his left hand, he had to depend on his left hand, and that is showing this Venus Mars parivartana, right? Mars typically indicates the age of 28-29, and that is when, exactly at that age, 1933 we are talking about, is when he underwent these problems and all that, and this parivartana happened, and Venus strengthened because of this parivartana. His life changed. I mean, that is what you can clearly see. The parivartana is literally happening, the strength going from the right to the left, and eventually obviously he strengthened. Once his right hand healed, he strengthened his right hand also. Okay. So that is what you clearly see over here, this life story playing it out. Okay. The other thing which I mentioned about is about the 3rd house from Karakamsha having some malefic influence. Here you can see Atmakaraka is Jupiter. Jupiter is in the sign of Dhanu. It's an own sign in the Navamsha. This is the Karakamsha. 3rd house from here is Aquarius, Kumbha Rashi, which is having Mars. In fact, Mars, Mercury, both of them. And Rahu is lord of the sign and also is having a Rashi Drishti on Aquarius. Okay, Rashi Drishti over here. So definitely this is indicating someone who's having a lot of guts. I mean, when you read about him, the amount of blows he took upon himself was phenomenal. Okay, you see that in the movie, and it was happened in the real life also. Okay. And the other things which I have shown in my previous video on the javelin throwers, that you should see the 10th house from the Navamsha Lagna, 10th house from Karakamsha. So 10th house from Navamsha Lagna happens to be Gemini. It is lorded by Mercury. 10th house joined Mars. Mercury joined Mars. Okay, so we can clearly see sports, competitive sports over here. 10th house from Karakamsha is Virgo. I mean, straight off, and anyway, Lord Mercury, Mars. So you can clearly see all these combinations indicating a career in sports. Okay, and as I said, Mercury is also the Varesha. But we also happen to see the Dashamsha chart. Okay, and that is what I'll come to next. So if you see in the Dashamsha, here he has Virgo Lagna again. Okay, with Moon over there. Moon in Lagna indicates fame. Okay, and fame just because of your name. And even today we remember the name Cinderella Man. Okay. By the way, the word Cinderella Man really connotes which planet? Venus. Cinderella, a beautiful lady, Venus, young lady, Venus. And Venus is entirely, so Venus is giving him the Raj Yoga way as the seventh lord, the Kendra lord, seventh lord also for that matter, Venus is giving him the Raj Yoga, right? But it required him to go through that Marana experience, wherein his left hand was not strong initially, he was primarily a right hand guy, and then he had to strengthen his left hand, going through hard labor, the poverty, and all those things. Okay. So, and over here, both Mercury and Mars are again in Marana Karakasthana. Mercury is also debilitated for that matter, but you know, debility can also give money when you talk about the Shamsha. Venus, being with Sun, is giving him, you know, is giving a bhanga for this, because Venus is the Karaka for 7th house. Okay, so the Marana Karaka bhanga is happening, and Venus is in 12th house. 12th house indicates losses, so he will have to suffer some loss, and then he will have to strengthen his left hand, which is the Venus hand, and then he will come back. Okay, just to prove it very clearly, absolutely, his entire boxing career happened in Venus Vimshottari Mahadasha. Okay, we are using Vimshottari because, you know, moon is in Kendra and Kona over here, or Kona over here it's in Kona, right? So we are using the normal Janma Vimshottari. Okay, his entire career, I mean, happened in the Venus Mahadasha, and specifically the Venus Rahu Dasha causes break in his career. Okay, Rahu, as you can see, is in a very bad position over here in Scorpio Rashi. Scorpio is not a good sign for Rahu. It is in fact a kind of debility, which is called Ayush debility. So something again is dying over here. So his career died. Okay, career died over here. And third house, but specifically third house, indicates not a complete death, it is showing a vacation. So he had to take a break. He had to take a break of some certain number of months to allow things to heal. Okay. And so Venus Rahu causes, and then Venus and Jupiter forming the Raja Yoga in the Rashi chart. Now you may argue Jupiter is in debility over here, but you see, there is a Nicha Bhanga of Jupiter by Moon. Moon in Lagna is giving the Nicha Bhanga for Jupiter. Straightforward. Okay. You may even argue Mars is also giving Nicha Bhanga being in Kendra. Okay. But yeah, that is it. So Venus, Jupiter, and even the age when he won the title, he had just turned 31. 31, 32 is the maturity of Jupiter. How much clear can you get? Venus, Jupiter Antardasha, and that is giving him the Raj Yoga. I mean, Raj Yoga meaning his most exalted title. I mean, he became the Raja, the world champion at that time. So you can see all the aspects which I mentioned over here in this particular slide, all of them are getting satisfied over here. Okay, I have shown you through this chart. The other charts also I have seen, boxers and many others, where I have seen all these combinations working. Okay, and as time permits, I will come to them and I will show to them. But hopefully you would have enjoyed not just the analysis, but also the life story of this person, which is very inspiring. Thank you so much, and till next time, namaste.